The Milwaukee Bucks host the Orlando Magic for an NBA Cup showdown. Winner gets to head to Vegas. I'm joined by the host of Locked On Magic for a special crossover edition of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic. If you're listening to Locked On Bucks, I am now joined by the host of Locked On Bucks, Camille Davis, as we get set for an NBA Cup quarterfinal matchup. That's fun for us Magic fans because we don't get to be in many of these games. For the Bucks, it might be old hat because they are the established. I don't want to say old guard because I think that's going a little too far. But Camille, it's great. I'm really excited for this matchup, not just because it feels like it should be a big game, but obviously both the Bucks and the Magic are kind of in this weird place. So before we dive into that, Camille, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. We're having unseasonably warm weather here in Milwaukee right now. Like it's like 45 degrees and I am excited about this 45. Let me tell you.
I am, as someone who is heading up to Milwaukee after I'm done recording this, I will be probably in the air as I publish this. I am excited for 45-degree weather instead of 28 or like what the low looked like when I looked at the weather. But that's neither here nor there. Weather is weather. It happens regardless of anything you do. What doesn't happen regardless of anything you do is how your team is playing. And I want to let's start with the Bucks because I think they're in such an interesting spot because on one hand they started off the season so slow, but they have Giannis, they have Damian Lillard. They're an established team. They know what they're doing. It always felt inevitable that they'd find themselves again, and especially in this Eastern Conference, making up ground isn't super difficult. So before we get into what's gone right, what sort of went wrong early in the season and how much, I don't want to say panic, but how much concern was there over the way that they started the year?
Yeah, I mean, starting the year off 2-8 when you have championship aspirations is not the way that you want to get started, especially after having a nice win in Philly to open the season up. You saw the ball movement. You saw things clicking for this team. You saw some improved chemistry with Giannis and Dame. And then after that, it just seemed like they reverted to a lot of old habits. During that first 10-game stretch, the Bucks were the 19th ranked offense and the 26th ranked defense, which that defense has not been that bad. 26th since like the 2013-14 season, like young Giannis. And then over time, they kind of started figuring things out, I think, for a few different reasons. One, rotationally, just understanding who should be in the game. Andre Jackson Jr. has been a big boom to the starting lineup with the defense that he's able to bring. AJ Green's another young Buck who's made an impact. And on top of that, too, just the team kind of understanding a lot of it was execution. And it felt like this Bucks team, when they played against, I don't want to say trash teams because it's the NBA. No one's trash.
You got to beat them.
Lesser competition, the Bucks were tricking those games off, and they had a tough schedule to open up the season. The fourth toughest based on last year's record, and then they were losing the games against the teams that weren't counting against that being one of the toughest parts of the schedule there for them. They just struggled, and over the last 10, 12, 13 games for the Bucks, they found like the defensive rotations have been more sound. The rotations itself have made a lot more sense, and you can see guys just kind of getting comfortable in the new scheme here.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, like some of it, like Doc Rivers, like he coached a lot last year, but first training camp, like this feels like it's sort of his first year.
Yeah,
first year. How much, we'll get to injuries when we get to the Magic segment, but how much of an impact did not having Chris Middleton in the early part of the season have on this team?
It's a big one. Like Doc only had Giannis, Dame, and Chris for like 6 games last season. Of his entire time of coaching the last half of the season, injuries kept them from being together in the lineup under Doc too frequently. So getting Chris Middleton back, it just makes the rotations make a lot more sense. Everyone looks at Chris Middleton normally for the shot making, the mid-range ability that he has. But one of Chris's best traits is his playmaking ability and the ability to get guys in position. He makes those bench lineups make a lot more sense, being able to stagger. And then on top of that, too, with the gravity that Giannis and Dame create, to have Chris Middleton being that guy who's on the weak side, like it changes the dynamics for this team offensively in so many different ways. So 2 games now we've had Chris back, and you can see it starting to click a little bit more for this team now. Still a little clunky because Chris is getting his legs underneath him still, but he just adds so much to this team, from his playmaking to his intelligence, his ability to get his teammates in position. They missed Chris Middleton a lot, and you saw that especially against better competition, how much they missed him.
Yeah, and even though the Magic maybe aren't the team that they were, this is still an elite level defense. They can still get after you, and they're, I think they'll still find some ways to challenge Milwaukee and force them to rotate the ball to Chris Middleton. He'll still have to make that kind of an impact. With Giannis and Dame, everyone last year when the Bucks got Dame said this is going to be one of the most dynamic pick and roll attacks. They're gonna be such a difficult offense. 1 year in, now 1.25 of a year in, what have you learned about that dynamic and how they best work together?
One thing I always say is, like, this is not NBA 2K where when you make a trade,
you
know what I mean? You make a trade and you're controlling it, so you get to have everything flow the way you need it to. Dame and Giannis needed to learn each other quite a bit. I mean, if you think about how many guys that Giannis has set screens for in the past, his biggest pick and roll partner has been Chris Middleton, and Chris Middleton plays at his own pace. It's very slow and methodical, and the angles he likes to screen is far different than the way that Dame likes it. So they had to just understand that chemistry aspect between the two of them, of what Dame is looking for on the pick and roll, how best to utilize it, when Giannis should slip, when he should flip, so on and so forth. And I think for the two of them, they had a moment actually in the playoffs last season when both of them were out. Dame mentioned they were both in the locker room left alone, and they had a real heart-to-heart conversation of, like, me and you have to figure this out. It's on the two of us to really figure this out. And that opened the communication doors for Giannis and Dame, and they spent the offseason having a lot of conversations. And this season, you can see the improved chemistry between the two of them, and they're starting to figure out ways to utilize one another a lot better. I feel like last season was a lot more of like, okay, it's my turn, and now it's your turn, and now it's my turn, now it's your turn. And you're seeing them kind of develop this synergy a bit better this year. So it's taken some time, and it's not perfect yet, but you can see the improvement between the two of them and their two-man actions. Not even just pick and roll, but the dribble handoffs, just even utilizing the Brook and Dame pick and roll, and how that can free up Giannis for some slot cuts, how that can free him up on the backside. So it's just getting really creative with how to utilize the two of them.
Yeah, and obviously, again, like it's not 2K. It's not like my team where you just collect the best players and they all work perfectly together without like egos getting in the way, without like player preferences getting in the way. Like it does. I think like the 08 Celtics kind of messed everyone's brain, thinking like you just put these guys together and they win immediately. It's like, no, you usually have to fail in the playoffs at least once before you figure it out as a team. And so to that point, maybe this is hot button for your listeners, but I'm genuinely curious. Are the Bucks still a championship level team to you? Because yes, they're on a heater right now. One of the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference for sure. Even after the loss to Boston, like I think people kind of came away from that game saying, okay, Milwaukee's still got a ways to go, but they hung tough with Boston. Use a more kind of put together team at this point. Lot of time before they have to meet in potentially May, June, whenever that is. But the 2-8 start is real. Like that happened. That's still in them. Are the Bucks still a championship team, or does it feel like their title window is closing a little bit right now?
I think as long as the Bucks have Giannis Antetokounmpo on the team, that window is open. He has been playing at a true MVP level so far this season. It's still very early, and we need the standings to shake out how they're going to shake out. A lot more basketball left to be played, but Giannis has been spectacular. Last season, he was the first player in NBA history to average at least 30 points per game while shooting at least 60% from the field. And he's on pace to do that for his second year in a row. He's been playing fantastic. Dame seems a lot more comfortable. And one thing with Dame's game, you've been seeing a lot more playmaking from Dame this season as well, which opens up things. I think that the supporting cast around the stars on this Bucks team fit a lot cleaner than they did last year. And if Chris Middleton can come back, as we've seen, and be healthy this season, they can kind of develop that chemistry. I think that thinking the Bucks can't win a championship would be short-sighted. They have enough pieces to do so, and they just have to continue to get better, continue figuring out that defense, and continue figuring out that offense as well. They've climbed to a top 10 offense at this point in the season, as well as I think like the 20th best defense after starting terribly. So again, a lot more room to improve, but I think it's still in them to be a championship team this year.
Yeah, obviously it's a long season, and so you know everyone's gonna have a bad like 6 or 7 game stretch at some point in the
Yeah.
season. Like, you know, I know for my listeners, like the Magic won 12 of 13 games, and it was like everything looks good, and now you know, even before the injuries, it started feeling like, okay, we're kind of settling into the Magic are going to go 500 for the next couple of weeks or be a
Mhm.
slightly above 500. You know, kind of you have to. I don't know if you watch Formula One. You have to kind of slow down and recharge the battery a little bit. You can't just be going crazy the whole time. And obviously, Milwaukee is a team with a ton of potential. Their matchup in this game, though, the Orlando Magic going through their own bit of transition right now as they enter what, at least on the schedule, looks like a critical game. We'll talk a little bit about where the Magic go coming up here in just a moment.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, $5, and you will get 150 in bonus bets if you win. Listen, the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you every single thing that you need to place live bets on the NFL, the NBA, whatever it is, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. I'm saying it again, y'all. Win that first $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com and never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
And we're back here with this crossover episode as we prepare for NBA Cup quarterfinal action between the Orlando Magic and the Milwaukee Bucks. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich, host of Locked On Magic, joined by Camille Davis of Locked On Bucks. And want to just note on that FanDuel read, the line for Magic Bucks was Bucks by 5, I believe, throughout the whole, like, since the matchup was made. Franz Wagner injury hits, and now it's Bucks by 8.5, at least at the time of recording. Not surprised by that at all. But let's dive into the Magic. What are you curious about with this Magic team right now?
I think I want to start with Franz because look, the Magic started the season like 3-2, if I remember correctly. You had that game where Paolo dropped 50, and it seemed like, okay, he has taken another step in his game. I know I was really excited about seeing Paolo continuing to develop. Then he gets hurt that very next game after dropping 50, and it seemed like the Magic stumbled for a little bit until Franz was like, you know what? I can be that guy too. So first, before we even talk about like the Magic now without Franz being in the lineup, could you just talk a bit about how he stepped up in the absence of Paolo and what he has meant to this Magic team without one of their superstars?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big question with Franz Wagner, because throughout his time, even like the year before Paolo, it was always, we all can see how good he is and how efficient he is, but he always felt like the kind of person and just the personality that maybe didn't have that like star killer instinct. Like I know that's something that like some stars go through where they just don't naturally feel like a star, where they, you know, want to put the pedal to the metal. And there'd always be this sense that Franz would fade into the background a little bit. And would, you know, even though like people would say that to me, like he's taking the most shots of any player on the team. It's not like he's completely faded in the background, but he didn't just have that kind of extra umph. And with Paolo Banchero out, the Magic kind of turned to him and said, I think even Jamal Mosley like said he had this conversation with Franz. We need you to go. Like you've got to take the shots that you're uncomfortable taking. You got to take that turnaround fadeaway mid-range jumper. You got to take that pull-up mid-range jumper. Everyone's eyes are on you, and you've got to step up. And to Franz's credit, he embraced it, and he found that rhythm. He found that process for him to take over and be the star player that I think we all sensed he could be. And once I think he kind of realized that he could do this, then the confidence came after him. Like so much with young players and just young people in general, whenever they're like kind of going into a new role, is, can I do this? Like we all have imposter syndrome to some extent.
That's a fact.
Yeah, we all do. And so there's just a basic question of, can I do this? And when you do it and then do it again repeatedly, then it becomes old hat. And all of a sudden now you're looking at Franz Wagner putting up, like, I think he averaged 26, 5 and 6 or something like that, or 26, 6 and 5 or something like that. And it was just like, oh, like, yeah, that's normal. Like that's what we expect from him now. And, you know, I've kind of been telling people this, like when Paolo comes back, the Magic can't like put this Franz back in the box. Like it's out now. This is who he is. And that's ultimately what they needed from him. And so if there was a good thing that came out of Paolo's injury, it's that it forced Franz to be what everyone would define as an all-star. Like if
Right.
we'll talk about the injury here in a minute, but if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to the all-star game as the Magic's representative, but deservingly so. And no one's going to bat an eye at that because of how well he's played.
So I love that. So my next question is like, now with Franz out, where do the Magic go? Because like, who are the guys who are in line to see that increased playing time? Who are the guys that the Magic are going to be looking to as like, okay, we don't have Paolo, we don't have Franz, like we need you to step up. Like, I'm not saying this is one of the guys, but to that point, like I know your rookie, Tristan da Silva, he was somebody who got a minutes boost with Paolo out, where it's like, okay, now we're going to get you in the game a bit more. Like, who are some of those guys you're looking to see more out of from playing time? And then who is the guy or guys who you are looking to for this Magic team? Like, we're going to need you to be the one to step up. Is it Jalen Suggs?
I think I'll start with that last question. The Magic played Sunday night against the Phoenix Suns, and all of us were curious how this was going to work. And very, very clearly, like Jalen Suggs has to be the guy. Like just like Franz Wagner had to step up into that kind of first player role and kind of embrace who he is. I think that's the important thing about all this too, is like, you can't change who you are as a player. Like Franz Wagner can't be Paolo Banchero. They play some things very similar, but Paolo is brute force, dig his shoulder into you, get to the basket kind of guy. Franz is I'm going to get into the basket. I'm going to Euro step. I'm going to stop. I'm going to hit a floater. Like, you can't change who you are. But the Magic just need more of who their players are. At a certain point, you just got to trust that you have the talent to compete. And so offensively, it's going to be on Jalen Suggs. And during Sunday's game, Suggs had only 4 points at the half. He was really struggling. He had 3 turnovers. Like, he was trying to do, and he even said after the game, I was trying to do too much. I was trying to replace what we don't have. And by the time the Magic got to the second half in the fourth quarter, he kind of calmed himself down. He was playing under control. He scored 22 of his 26 points in the second half. He had 14 in the fourth quarter. And there's still some moments where he's trying to make the home run play. That's kind of part of the Jalen Suggs experience. But he made a lot of those big plays to help the Magic beat the Suns on their home floor and win, kind of running away. They won 115-110. So it wasn't like it was a blowout or anything. But Suggs made all the plays and made all the big shots down the stretch that gave the Magic the lead. And that's kind of what the Magic are going to need. But obviously they need a lot of other guys to step up to.
Right.
Jamal Mosley spoke about this before the game. It's not, you can't rely on one person to replace the 27, 6 and 5 that Franz Wagner gives you. You need to find, like Moneyball, you need to find it in the aggregate. You need to find a bunch of guys stepping up. And so I think like Tristan da Silva is a good answer for someone who's going to have to step up. I think the Magic will probably try and get him more shots or see if he can handle a little bit more on-ball responsibilities. He's kind of been that fifth starter, stand in the corner type guy.
Yeah.
Which happens, but it's honestly going to be someone different every night. To me, what the Magic have to do, it's not necessarily about scoring more points or replacing everything that you're losing in Franz Wagner. It's doing what you do better, or like really focusing in on who you are in your core. And so that's for this Magic team that's defending at a high level. They're third in the league in defensive rating, and Franz is a sneaky candidate for all defensive, or was a sneaky candidate for all defensive team. You're not going to replace him, but Jalen Suggs and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are still two of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Goga Bitadze is an excellent defender at the basket. They have a lot. They still have size they can throw at you, and defenders that they can throw at you, and that's still who they are as a team. The Magic are a team that loves to scavenge. Like, they will go get offensive rebounds, get those second chance points, kind of like steal possessions and steal points. Goga Bitadze had 16 rebounds against the Suns, 9 offensive rebounds.
Sheesh.
He's scoring a lot of his points. And the Suns are a pretty good rebounding team. I know they didn't have Yusuf Nurkic on Sunday, but they're still one of the better rebounding teams in the league. Goga Bitadze, you're not running plays for him. He's going to get all of his points off of dump downs, pick and rolls, and putbacks. And that's, you have to emphasize those. But you're going to need other players to step up too. Like, Orlando's going to need more consistency from Anthony Black. He's been pretty up and down for his second season. His defense is excellent, but you don't know what you're going to get from him offensively. Some nights he's really good getting the basket. Some nights the three's falling. Some nights it's not. Cole Anthony is going to step back into the rotation. And I think the Magic are going to lean on him to create a little bit more and be the scorer that he was through the first 3 years of his career, where he struggled, the first 4 years of his career that he struggled with this year. They're going to need support from a bunch of different places, and it's not going to be easy. There's going to be nights where it looks rough, I think.
And that happens. I mean, especially with the defensive first mentality that the Magic have. And that's like my last question before we get into the game preview of itself. Like the Magic last season, so solid defensively. It was just the shooting. Like they just could not seem to score enough points. Has the shooting gotten better or more consistent for the team this year? Like, has KCP helped at all with that? Like, how?
On advice of my attorney, I would like to invoke my rights under the Fifth Amendment on this one. No, the Magic are last in the league in 3-point field goal percentage. It's been rough, and it's like a virus. Like they go through a shooting slump, and it just spreads to everybody. Like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a 40% 3-point shooter. He's like a career, at least entering the series, a career 37% 3-point shooter. We're more than a quarter of the way through the season. He's shooting less than 30% from three. Wow. And it's just like, we can't figure it out. I will say this. Last year, the Magic's problem was a lack of volume. Like they were 29th, they were 29th in the league in 3-point field goals attempted. They were like 22nd, 23rd in percentage. And it was just like, you're not shooting enough threes to even make up the ground. This year they're taking more threes, which I think is good. If you look at like the numbers, the quality of their 3-point shots are fine. They're getting, they're still, I think, top 5 in the league in corner threes per game. They're still like top 3 or 4 in the league in like the wide open threes that NBA.com tracks, which whether those are accurate or not, it's a hint of like, okay, you're at least potentially taking good shots. And some of that might be defenses are like, go ahead and take those shots. We don't care. They're not making any of them. And so really, like what I tell my listeners is with the Magic, it's not about the percentage. They're going to shoot a poor percentage. They're going to shoot low 30s. That's just how it's going to be. The Magic, I believe, are still first in the league in 3-point attempts allowed per game. They chase teams off the 3-point line. They don't give up a lot of threes themselves. And so when I look at matchups, what I worry about is that raw number. Are the Magic at least within 2 or maybe 3 threes of the other team? So if Milwaukee makes 15 threes, Orlando's got to be at about 12, 13 threes. Like that's the number that I look at, because the Magic, they're not going to make threes. They're just not going to be a good shooting team. And, you know, they added an elite shooter and he hasn't helped them with that. They're now down probably their 2 best playmakers and their 2 best guys to create some gravity. Jalen Suggs is a great example of this. In the first 5 games of the season with Paolo Banchero, he shot like 42% on catch and shoot threes on like 8 attempts per game. He's down to like 20 since Paolo's injury. He's down below 30% on like 4 attempts per game. Like the shots just aren't there in the same way that they were before Paolo's injury. And now with Franz out, I think like, especially for Suggs, those spot up opportunities are going to go away. So it's still about like find the right process, get good threes, take them when they're there, but prevent threes on the other end, like kind of suffocate the 3-point shooting on the other end just to give you a chance, because it may be Tuesday. It wouldn't surprise me if it's Tuesday. There's going to be a game where the other team just makes enough threes that it doesn't matter what the Magic are doing. They just don't have the horses to keep up.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the matchup, especially with these two teams, because some of the things that you've highlighted that the Magic do well are areas where the Bucks tend to struggle. So as we dive into the matchup in the next segment, I cannot wait to have a conversation about what we might see on Tuesday in Fiserv Forum when the Magic come into town for this NBA Cup game. It's all on the line, Phil. Everybody's trying to get to Vegas, and this is going to be the game that determines it.
It absolutely will. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you actually get. So somewhere in between the store, then that first bill you get, the price you thought you were paying, it tends to skyrocket. But with Mint Mobile, you will never have to worry about the gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. So use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along as well. Plus, you can bring all your existing contacts as well. Ditch the overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Again, that's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. $45 upfront payment is required, which is equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions may apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
So, Camille, we've arrived. We are here. NBA Cup quarterfinals. It both feels like it's come too fast and also is taking forever to get done. I always find like, I want to start here, I guess, before we dive a little bit more into the matchup itself. I always feel like, yeah, it's only 2 years, so maybe not always is the right word, but it feels like the NBA Cup means more to a team like the Magic than it does the Bucks, because like the Bucks have the championship banner hanging in their building. Like Giannis has been to the top of the mountain. That's where he wants to be. For a team like the Magic, they're trying to establish themselves, and this feels like a good way to like introduce themselves to the wider NBA world, that they can compete at, kind of on the bigger stage, or like we don't have a league-wide trophy. We only have conference trophies. We want a big one. So I want to start here. What has been the Bucks' approach? They're obviously undefeated in NBA Cup play. What's been the Bucks' approach to this tournament, especially maybe even considering how they bowed out of it last year?
Yeah, they said it very simply, like they're competitors. And if you put something in front of them that they can win, they're going to want to win it. And I think this season in particular, the NBA Cup could hold a little bit of a different weight. Because again, last season, there was all the hype around the Dame and Giannis thing, and he just got here. And this is a season now where it got off to a really rough start. A lot of people were writing the Bucks off very quickly. And if the Bucks can make some noise in this NBA Cup, get to Vegas, they have a chance to just remind the league of who they are and who they can be. So I think for the Bucks as well, of course, they're going out here, they're trying to win the game. And on top of that, players are enticed by being able to be in Las Vegas in the middle of the season during December. The amount of time off in between the games as well is going to be a big beneficial thing. So the Bucks are going to go into this trying to win it. And I think, like I said, because of how the year started, I think there's a little added motivation of like, we can really show people how it went. And then with how last year went, of getting to Vegas, getting embarrassed a bit by the Pacers, having the locker room, not blow up, locker room arguments.
It's a meeting.
Yeah, a meeting, a hotly contested meeting come out after the game as well. I think it could be a time for the Bucks to kind of go down there, exercise some old demons and continue on with this season. How are the Magic approaching this? Is this something that they really are into, or is it like the competitive nature is just innate in them and they want to win it?
I mean, I'll get to where the qualifier is here in a minute, but like I do think the Magic really bought into this tournament. Last year, the Magic went 3-1 in the tournament and were eliminated on the last day because the Celtics beat the Bulls by 35 points. Like they sat there on the last day. They were done. They couldn't do anything. They were in the clubhouse and they watched the Celtics beat them. And for a young team that was like trying to like establish itself and say like, hey, we're here. We're a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Those the NBA Cup period last year, or the in-season tournament, whatever you want to call it, that was when the season turned around. Orlando lost that first game to Brooklyn in the NBA Cup by 20. And it was just like, okay, whatever. It didn't really mean anything. And it turned out it meant a lot.
Right.
But they burned off 9 straight after that, including beating the Celtics and sweeping their last 3 games. And that was a major turning point in last season. And it was a turning point in that they now had like not playoff experience, but those games felt a little bit bigger for them than maybe it would for a more established team. And I think the Magic entered this season's NBA Cup thinking we want redemption for that a little bit. We have a chip on our shoulder because we didn't advance last year. They wanted to be in this position. And I think it would mean a lot for them because they, despite making the playoffs last year, getting to game 7, they're a team that's short on experience still. They're still I think they're the 6th youngest team in the league. They're still a team that I think could use some seasoning and be in these pressure situations where it's do or die. Now, it may not completely feel like a playoff series or a playoff game, but the Magic weren't really tested in do or die games. They probably don't win an in game against Milwaukee without what they experienced in the NBA Cup and the pressure of having to advance in that tournament. And so I think the Magic are using it that way this year. Now, I think that if the Franz Wagner injury doesn't happen, we're probably thinking and talking about this game from the Magic perspective a little bit differently because, then it's be like, okay, there's a fair shot. Like Franz can have a big game, can put this team on his back. Certainly a little bit of redemption from the loss in New York on Tuesday, where, the Magic are on the national stage. They get embarrassed. Like, I know they lost by 15 in the end, but they nearly lost a 36-point margin and margin to advance. Like, it was an embarrassing game. And it felt like, okay, that game's done. They get redemption. They get a chance to redeem themselves on national TV against Milwaukee. But obviously Franz Wagner's injury just completely changes how we're looking at this game, because now it's just like, how does this team survive? It's still a regular season game too at the end. How does this team kind of plan the next 2-3 weeks until Paolo Banchero's back?
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And as we wrap up here, I just have one last question for you, and I'll answer it myself. It's just like, what is the one thing or one matchup that you're going to be really paying close attention to during this NBA Cup game between the Bucks and the Magic? Now, one thing for myself, because the Magic is such a suffocating defensive team, is just how do the Bucks combat that? Because we've seen throughout this season at times when teams can really pressure Dame in the backcourt, at times I feel like the Bucks just didn't have enough ball handlers to overcome that. Chris Middleton is back in the lineup. I'm assuming that he will be playing tomorrow as well. So hopefully that can help alleviate that. But I'm just really going to be looking to see how the Bucks can combat that smothering defense from the Magic, as well as if they can keep the Magic off of the glass, because the Bucks have been susceptible to other teams coming in, getting offensive rebounds, getting more possessions, and then the Bucks just kind of spin their wheels a bit after that, I will say. But what's a matchup or thing that you're looking forward to in this game that you'll be paying close attention to?
Yeah, the thing that I'm like most curious about how the Magic handle is probably like the most basic question is like, how do they handle Giannis? Like, how do they handle Giannis? Because so much of this Magic team is built on, the John Hammond style, which I'm sure Bucks fans are very familiar with. Size, length, positional versatility. Typically in a game against the Bucks, the Magic would have a Paolo Banchero they could throw at him, a Franz Wagner they could throw them. And look, you're not stopping Giannis, but you just need to provide some resistance and some size to make it a little bit tougher for him. Right now, the Magic are going with a double center lineup with Wendell Carter and Goga Bitadze. I'm sure Wendell Carter would have been one of the guys they threw at Giannis anyway, but Wendell Carter isn't exactly going to be stopping or slowing down Giannis when he's coming in transition. I don't know if I quite trust Tristan da Silva to do that yet. And Jonathan Isaac, we're recording this at around 11 a.m. here on Monday, so the Magic's injury report isn't out. Jonathan Isaac's missed the last 2 games with a sore right hamstring. I've honestly said, like, if Isaac can go, I would match his minutes with Giannis just to have that size and mobility on him. The Magic, to my eye, at least in Sunday's game, they lost a lot of their size advantage, losing both Paolo and Franz and Isaac. And so defending a guy like Giannis, I think that's the most basic thing you got to do. You got to wall up. You got to do everything you can to just slow him down, hit him, make his life hard and make it harder for him to get to the basket. I think the Magic are going to really struggle with that, or how they scheme around that, I think is going to be a big determiner in this game.
It's going to be fun to watch. It's 2 teams that are coming in at different places, but I think both, as we have talked about, are really looking to win this game and try to punch their ticket in Vegas to continue on the path to become the NBA Cup champions for this season. So, Phil, I thank you for your time this morning. It's been great catching up and getting a look more in depth of what the Magic have going on. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Camille. And I get the feeling this is not the last time we'll be having this conversation.
Absolutely not.
I think we'll be talking again in April.
For sure. I could definitely see that.